The Angry Chicken Hearthstone podcast is produced by amove.tv. Check out amove TV for more podcasts covering Blizzard games. For more of Jocelyn's gaming podcasts, visit jossplays.com. And to find many more podcasts with Ridiculous Hat, follow @RidiculousHat on Twitter. Every episode of Tech is made possible thanks to our legendary patrons over at patreon.com/TAC.
Time's up. Let's do this.
Legendary!
You face Jaraxxus. You smell like a leper gnome. I knew it. So hot.
A podcast about Hearthstone and Battlegrounds. This is The Angry Chicken!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Angry Chicken. I'm your host, Jocelyn, and joining me, as always, is Ridiculous Hat.
Hello, that's the most excited anyone's ever been to introduce me.
Really? On all the shows you've ever been on? That's the pinnacle? I don't know if I should feel like...
It's so sing-songy. I don't normally get, like, a sung intro.
It's like a theme song, almost.
I'll take it. It feels like I'm being called down to the ring. I need to have, like, theme music here, but all of my stuff is going to get its copyright struck, so I don't have any.
Yes, please do not get me kicked off Twitch. That would be bad news bears. Unfortunately, we don't have Garrett with us tonight. He got his COVID booster this morning, and he is not feeling well. So it's just me and Hat this week. But honestly, as much as I love and miss Garrett, I'm kind of glad because I didn't want to do a 4-hour show because there is so much news that I think 2 voices is probably plenty.
Yes, and we will circle back with Garrett, and he has opinions. He shared one with us.
Opinions.
Yeah, there is an opinion here. I told him I would say this about the Battlegrounds Esports. It says that Garrett gives a lot of clucks. I might have misread that last word, but it's close enough. I don't know. But he's very excited for BG Esports. Also, so listeners, I know that when Jocelyn's feeling well, we tweet her uniform gifs. Or unicorn. Did I say uniform? Unicorn.
You said uniform. I mean, I like sports, so it's all good.
Yeah. Sparkly unicorn gifs for Joss. I can't say words today. So, Garrett, we need to tweet him Fast and Furious gifs. I want him to get a bunch of unprompted, no context Vin Diesel or Cars or Paul Walker, whatever you got. Send it to @GarrettArt on Twitter.com to let him know that we're thinking about him.
You got to know that they're going to all be about family, right?
It's well, I mean, we don't have friends. That's all we got is family. You know.
I also have to agree with Celestin in the chat room that you really can't speak tonight because you're saying GIF all wrong. So. I mean, we're not going to get into that argument because, like I said, we do have a lot to cover tonight, but we're going to kind of get into it a little bit just because you're so wrong.
Let's just do the podcast.
All right, fair. In order to do the podcast, we have to make sure that we thank our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/tac. Thank you so much for supporting us and all that we do here at The Angry Chicken. If you want to become a patron, again, you can head to patreon.com/TAC and become a supporter. It gets you access over on our Discord server, and you can add free podcast feed, which is pretty neat. So yeah, you can go over and do that just like Michael Alfaro did this week. Thank you so much for supporting the show, Michael. Again, that is at patreon.com/tac. And that brings us to the Hearthstone news.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay!
We have so much Hearthstone news this week. It's going to be the entire show. There's a split of standard news, there's battleground news, and it all started with patch 22.0.2, which came out live just today, actually, right?
This morning, yes, we got the patch notes and then the patch. I think it was supposed to be like 45 minutes after, but it chilled a little bit. But yeah, it was like an hour and a half after the patch notes. They just like, because Celestin last week tweeted, there will be no balance changes before Worlds.
So
Didn't say anything
right
about
after.
right after. Literally right after. And it makes sense that they want to get it out there on Monday because they're out of the office later this week. I don't think it's even a full week, and they're out until the 3rd. So the sooner the better to make sure that if there are any bugs, they can hotfix them real quick. But so far, I haven't heard of anything major. And yeah, they changed a lot of stuff. 13 cards in Constructed got changed, plus Battlegrounds, plus other stuff. Seems like a big deal.
It was, yeah, it was a huge patch. So let's start off by talking about the nerfs. So we did have some balance updates, like Hat said. First and foremost, to celestial alignment. So I don't know if you guys watched the World Championship this weekend. I watched quite a bit of it, actually. It wasn't since there were only the 8 players there wasn't as much to watch as normal. It seemed very short to me.
It's World's a different experience. I do like that every match feels truly world class. Like they're all really intense. The players are excellent. They've been playing a ton, and they've won a bunch this year. But yeah, it definitely is a different kind of pace, and just Saturday and Sunday, and feels like just the middle of the day. And all the top-notch casters. By the way, got to shout out Darok. He had been confirmed he got a positive COVID test the morning he was supposed to cast, and then just said, "Screw it, I'm casting anyway," and just did it the whole weekend with COVID.
Man,
so
rough.
Pretty incredible dedication. But yeah, I enjoyed watching the play, and then I'm glad they deleted a bunch of the decks that we saw, because the lineups. Well, what did you think of the lineups?
I mean, it all felt like a lot of stuff that we'd kind of seen before. Like there was a lot of OTK Demon Hunter, which is something that's been around for quite a while now. We saw Celestial Alignment Druid. We saw Garrote Rogue. Like it seemed to be a lot of stuff we'd already seen, which, I mean, combo is really powerful right now, but there weren't as many Owl Warlocks as I thought there might be.
Yeah, Owl doesn't really line up. The way these lineups were built, basically you start in the assumption that Garrote Rogue is a deck that you can't really effectively beat. There are 2 good targets to Garrote Rogue. 2 decks that reliably do well against it. Celestial Alignment Druid and OTK Demon Hunter, because you glide away their discounted hand, or you Celestial Alignment them. Both of those are really good against decks that pile up a bunch of cards in hand and then play a bunch of them in the same turn for different reasons. You need a 4th deck. You need something else. So that's why you saw so many Garrote Alignment Glide lineups. And then the 4th deck was what people were questioning. There are a couple other ways to approach the format that may not involve that, but most of those didn't work. The only one that did is Glory, last year's world champion, who wound up back in the champion,
which was
in the
pretty
finals.
insane.
Incredible in the all Japanese final as well. Glory versus Possessi, first time that's happened either. But there's not a lot of board development going on with these decks, or at least watching Garrote Rogue, it's such an interesting deck to see the best players in the world play because it's so fluid and flexible. But yeah, we've seen these cards before. Yeah, we've seen these interactions before, and there's a lot of killing people from 30 from hand, and not as much board stuff. And I think the hope was that Alterac would be different. The intention was for Alterac to be different, as was confirmed by developer tweets and comments, both in these patch notes and beforehand. So it was cool to see the best players in the world play the hardest decks in the game well, and it was interesting. But yeah, I'm ready for next tournament to be other decks.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, you talked about the whole idea of the 4th deck, and I think like even the 4th decks that we were seeing a lot of people bring, like the Owl Warlock was the newest, obviously, but it was still that same sort of like combo style. And then the other 4th decks that we were seeing in a lot of cases, well, a lot, again, there's only 8 players, but like we were seeing like Face Hunter, and we were seeing like Paladin, and they were doing Libram things. And it's just like, there wasn't a whole lot of new hotness, which I understand. But yeah, it just, I think it made the whole tournament just feel a little bit samey, because because so many of these decks were combo oriented, it kind of felt like no matter which deck you were watching a very similar style of game. So you just kind of had both players trying to stay as high as possible and assemble their pieces and get their discounts, and then, you know, play their entire, not even their entire hand, because right now we're living in a Hearthstone world where people are just playing out the rest of their decks in one turn. Like, you can have like 15 cards left between your deck and your hand, and you're still playing everything out on one final big kaboomy turn. So that's all fun to watch every once in a while, but when every single match and every single game is that same style of play, then it does get a little bit tiresome. Like, I'm trying not to be too like heavy-handed with the criticism, because I did enjoy watching it and I do like combo decks. So, but I think it just, when every deck from every person is combo almost, that it got a little bit samey. But it was very skillful. It was very skillful, chat room. You're right. They were playing decks in like, I knew sitting, watching and looking at the screen, I'm like, I can't do that. So, you know, it did have that, it did get that reaction out of me anyways.
It was a nice send-off, hopefully, for a lot of these strategies. The only really new thing that we saw, like Gabby had Owl TK, and then the Xiaobai and Tianming, the Chinese players, both brought the Bolner OTK deck, which is like free Shaman with the Bolner OTK that was never good enough until now. And that deck usually wins by just developing Wildpaw Caverns and Snowfall Guardians and just hitting you with stuff, but it also happens to have a bunch of damage at the end. And there were some really cool games. I felt, as someone that, you know, I don't play at the level of the world's players, but like, I play a lot of Hearthstone in Legend, in High Legend, and these are the, I understand what the decks they're trying to pull off and how difficult it is to get in those situations. As a person that's wired into the competitive scene and is familiar with how difficult it is to make these decks work, you know, it's like, it's watching someone show off, right? It's an all-star game sort of thing. It's a Pro Bowl. And so watching that sort of thing is really enjoyable. I was very invested in a lot of the games, especially when I was watching my buddy McBannerface. But if they were different decks next time, I would like it more. So I expect they are, and it seems like Team 5 also hopes they are, and we should talk about some of these changes that they made. I was going to say,
so do you want to talk about why we're not going to see Celestial Alignment Druid, or maybe potentially not see Celestial Alignment Druid?
Yes, I would like to very much. I would like to marinate on the fact that we will see a lot less of this deck, because that's I'm happy about that. If you enjoyed playing Celestial Alignment Druid, more power to you. I hope you can't anymore. It's so the change that they made here is they moved it from 7 to 8.
Literally the most straightforward change you can make in Hearthstone.
Yeah,
it costs more now.
These are just I think every change except one here is just numbers moving around. And alignment makes a lot of sense, because when you overgrowthed on turn 4, you would have 7 mana the next turn and you would cast alignment, and now you cannot really do that. And alignment
some extra
in particular, well, like, you can coin, you can innervate, whatever. If you Lightning Bloom, you still don't really want to do that, because then you're overloaded next turn. You can't play anything.
Can't do anything.
Alignment has this really narrow window where if you play it and your opponent doesn't have damage on board to kill you, and you aren't at a really low life total to die to one thing from hand, you probably win the game the next turn. But you can't ever play it if your opponent has enough damage to kill you, unless the Goldshire Knolls and Umbral Owls you play from hand to trade are enough to keep you alive, and usually they aren't. So every change that we see here, basically all of them, except for, I think, one of them, is all about making it better if you were a deck that wants to play minions in the early game and develop a board, because that was what was missing from the format. So all of these changes are about expanding the window where that's enough to win a game, where all the decks that deal with what you're doing from hand and then kill you are just slower now. All the anti-minion stuff, Snowfall Guardian in particular, we'll get to that just a turn later, just slower now. There's a little bit more time to play minions on the board and attack your opponent and win the game by doing that. Basically every change we look at here, except for one, Trog will get to you, is built around the idea of making that something that doesn't get punished as quickly or as badly. Alignment's a big deal here because 7 to 8, I know it's only 1 mana. 1 mana is enormous, and just one turn later where your opponent gets to develop and then you have to play this and hope you survive that turn is potentially devastating. Remains to be seen if this is going to be enough to kill the deck. A lot of folks think it is. We don't know for sure. Depends on the context of the meta. Blah blah blah. You should dust them, but don't spend all your dust right away if you think you might want this back. But yeah, it's a pretty big deal here.
We have another change, this one not to Druid, this one to Paladin. So Alliance Bannerman has been basically just 1 health gone. So it's a 2-1 now instead of a 2-2. Does this seem like a big enough change? Like, I feel like, again, this is one of those things that, like, you didn't change the cost, so it's going to happen at the same time. And this really feels like it wasn't about the minion, it was about the effect, right? And the effect didn't change. It still says you draw a minion and give the minions in your hand +1/+1, which is still really strong. So I don't know about this change. I kind of wish they'd done more.
So where's Garrett? I need Garrett for Paladin stuff. You don't. You're anti-Paladin, right? I vaguely remember.
I mean, I might have said F Paladin when we were talking about decks that we were gonna try to play this week. But mostly that's just. It's not that I hate them. It's that I just wish that they disappear for an expansion or so. And that even isn't about Paladin in general. It's just the same playstyle, which I think I've said in sometime in the past couple of weeks, is that I just feel like they've been doing the same thing for a really long time now, and they've been on top with that same thing on ladder for a really long time now. So I'd like them to just go away or do something different.
Yeah. They got 2 significant nerfs this round. We'll talk about it. But so, okay. What deck are you playing these days? What's the most recent deck you've played?
So I was playing that Beast Druid, that aggro Beast Druid.
Okay.
Because again, like you said, I'm very much a person who really likes minion combat, who likes playing stuff onto the board and doing the value trading thing, and like old school zoo, like all that kind of stuff. Like I really like playing stuff out onto the board. I think combo decks are fun, and I've liked some of them in the past, but in general, I like putting minions on the board, and there weren't a whole lot of minions on the board strategies outside of kind of like Pirate Warrior or, the aggro decks, and I was sick of Face Hunter, so I landed on Beast Druid, and it was fun. It is fun.
It is. So, okay, Beast Druid's perfect. Imagine your opponent, and you've played against Bannerman. I know you have, because you've played Standard recently. Imagine you're playing Beast Druid, and they play a Bannerman on 3, and then you start your turn 4, and you have a Claw Fury Adept in hand, the 2/3 that gives all your characters +1 attack, and then some other 2-drop, and you play the Adept, and now you can kill their Bannerman, as opposed to it being alive or needing to spend a minion. Better for you, right?
That is true.
But does any Paladin take Bannerman out of their deck?
No.
No. Is the card worse?
No. It's still, like I said, same cost, same battle cry.
It's the same cost, the same battle cry, but the card is objectively worse. It dies to your Claw Fury Adept, it dies to Feldscream Blast, it dies to Mortal Coil, it dies to Demon Hunter Hero Power is your favorite. So if a card is worse, but nobody stops playing it, that's a great nerf. Because you're not taking a deck away from someone. You're not invalidating a strategy. You're just finding edges for people to take advantage of early there, especially if you are developing minions early game on the board. It gives you more ways to win. Same as the alignment change, but a very different way. And you want these kind of nerfs that it doesn't delete a deck. All it does is it shaves a little bit of power off of this card that every Paladin's going to play anyway, and gives you a clear vulnerability on their 3-mana play to say, I can kill that easily, go face, and build a board that they can't deal with. And it might actually be a choice now for some Paladin decks to decide, hey, I don't need this effect because the body's too weak, and maybe they actually look at it a little more closely. But even if they keep playing it, it's just a little bit of extra stats they don't have. I'm happy about that. I like that. I know it looks weird. I know it feels weird because we're used to nerfs changing how people play, but they don't have to. It's okay if a deck has a good play pattern but wins too much. Make the same plays win less often, And the people that like the deck will be happy because they get to keep playing it. And the people that don't like the deck will be happier because they get to beat it more. I'm all about that life.
I do like beating Paladin, so
Yeah.
I'm down with this then, I guess, when you put it that way. I'm excited to talk to you about the next change because it's a rogue change, and
It is.
you rogue better than anyone else I know. So let's talk about Efficient Octobot. So Efficient Octobot went from a 2-cost card to a 3-cost card, but everything else about it is still the same. So Frenzy reduced the cost of the cards in your hand by 1, and it's still a 1/4. Does this impact rogue at all? Or is this card just still very, very good?
Both. So, okay. This card is still good. Octobot and Barons. You remember Baron Drogue.
Yes.
With 10 Woo Alex, with 6 mana, 5 mana, then 6 mana Jandis.
Remember when we used to play Alex?
I do. That was a fun 4 months. So mana reduction cards, there are a bunch of them that got nerfed this patch. The scary part of mana reduction is when you reduce something from 1 to 0, but it's you really want to think about proportional reduction. The more low-cost cards your deck has, you might think, well, mana reduction is worse in a deck where everything is so cheap, but no. If you're think about it, if there's a sale. If something is 10% off, that is worse than if something is 50% off. Reducing a 10 mana card by 1 versus a 2 mana card by 1, huge difference in how much mana you're taking off. And a lot of what Octobot is doing is reducing from 1 to 0. That's also what we'll see with Ruin Mithril Rod later in the same patch.
Which,
and
I still think, and I know we've talked about this before, and we've talked about this, I feel like more often since the release of Demon Hunter, but in general, I really wish that they would either print it on the cards or make it a rule in the game where nothing can go below 1, where whenever you're reducing the cost of things, like things should still cost something, unless they're purposely designed to be a 0 mana card. Because then you're thinking the devs are at least taking balance and class and everything else into account when they're creating that card. But man, just some things like, watching Druid and watching Rogue this past weekend, it was just like, man, they're not paying for any of their shenanigans.
But so, make the cost reducers cost more, which is what they're doing. Hearthstone is a game where you play a bunch of stuff in some turn sometime, and that's super fun for the person that gets to do it. It's Cloaked Huntress, the 3 mana 3/4 back in Karazhandel. You play secrets for 0 mana. I like playing a bunch of secrets. It's not broken. It's just a bunch of secrets. The issue is Octo and Rod and Alignment and all that. They were coming down at the point of the game where you couldn't really stop what they were doing, and then they won the game immediately after. The goal is just to make it so you have to work harder for that discount. Luna's Pocket Galaxy at 5 was broken. At 7, it was still a good card, but you would die the turn you played it a lot of the time because a couple turns later is a big deal. So Octobot is not inherently evil, and when we played it in Barons, played it on 2, and then we traded, and then we played a 3 mana Kazakis, and the world went on. It just wasn't the sort of thing where the game was over right away because we were discounting more expensive cards to get a slight advantage. Garrote Rogue's mechanism is inherently really, really efficient, and all the cards cost not enough mana, and then they draw a ton. The biggest impact of this change is that when you shadow step it, it's no longer free. Because what they would do is they would go Octo, it would be Octo Contact Og Merchant, and then they would step the Octo, play a whole bunch of stuff, replay the 0 mana Octo, and play a 0 mana second Og Merchant or Penflinger or whatever to discount their hand again in the same turn. You can't do that anymore. If you're out of mana and you step the Octo, you don't get another discount. You don't get to keep going. That's a big deal. Will Garrote still be good at High Legend? It sure will be. It absolutely will be. Will they need to nerf it again before this expansion is over? I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know if they will, but I wouldn't be surprised. But notice in this patch, there are 9 cards they nerfed. You know what none of them are? Not a single one is a hero card. Not a single one is a hero card. 2 of the buffs are hero cards, because right now is the time for hero cards to be good, because they're new in Alterac. We're not nerfing any hero cards this patch. They will in the future, and our buddy Shadowcrafter Scabs not making it out of this expansion at 7 mana. That's just not happening. I'll say it right now. I'll make a bet. That card should cost more than 7.
That's fair. I mean, you've been talking about him since the beginning, since he was announced. You're like, this is too good. It's too good, too good.
It's a lot. It decided the semifinals on camera this past weekend. So Octobot is only in Garrote Rogue right now. I am glad that they're not eviscerating the card, because there will be a fair rogue deck again post-rotation. And Octo is sticking around. 3 is okay for now. Maybe they put it back down to 2 in the future, but maybe they don't. Okay. This is a significant change when you're playing Garrote, and again, it just makes it harder to pull off the combo, which is what they've done with every nerf so far. And this is not a deck that is easy to play for even the best players in the game. We saw mistakes being made at the World Championship this past weekend. So, like, if the 8 best players in the world are making mistakes with the current version of the deck, making it harder, most people aren't going to see this deck on ladder anymore, but most people already weren't. I'm glad they're making this change. For the people that are at the very, very high echelons of the game, this probably won't be enough for them, but it's enough to make it harder. It's a good start.
That's fair. So let's move over to Shaman then. Let's talk about Snowfall Guardian. So that was another one that was just a mana cost change. So it went from 5 up to 6. And this was the one that its battle cry is to freeze everything else and gain +1/+1 for each frozen minion, which often got paired with the Macaw that repeats the last battle cry that you played. So very, very, very powerful combo.
And you were playing a deck that made a bunch of puppies.
I was.
How did you feel about your board getting frozen 3 turns in a row and then losing?
Yeah, not so great. My puppies were sad. They were just sitting there wiggling their little puppy butts saying, "Oh, I just want to pounce. I just want to pounce." And then they couldn't because they were frozen, and that was sad.
Yeah. It just came down so fast. Just like coin it on turn 4 into Macaw was just crazy. It just felt crazy. So again, give the decks that play minions on curve more time to do that and hit you with them. Same thing.
Fair.
Yeah, I hope it is more fair, because the Frost Nova plus a giant at the same time in the same card, it's strong.
It was too many things for 5 mana.
Yeah. At 6, again, no one's taking this out of a deck.
Mhm.
If anyone was playing this card before, it's staying right where it is. So, good nerf.
Touch of the Nathrezim. So this used to be deal 2 damage to a minion. If it dies, restore 4 health to your hero. Now you get to deal 2 damage to a minion, and if it dies, restore 3 health. So no change to cost, change to amount of healing received if you do the thing, which I think is good, because they heal too much while getting rid of all my stuff.
Yeah. So this is not a heavy nerf. It's more of a light touch.
No.
Yes. Everyone saw that coming. I mean, it's worse, but it's not a lot worse. This is not the Warlock nerf that Handlock is worried about. But I mean, it'll heal a little less. It's gonna matter, especially when paired with Tamsin. This is 2 or 3 points of health a game, and there are a lot of games that I win with Handlock at low life totals. But this is just a nudge. I don't think that they want Handlock to be bad, or rather, I don't think they mind that Handlock is good. It's probably going to stay good, but if that's the best deck in the format, not hard to target. And so I think that's probably going to stay that way with this. But again, we're still going to play this card. It's just sometimes I'm going to die now where I didn't before. Okay.
That's fair. Again, like you said, when we were talking about the Paladin change, you're still doing all the same things, but sometimes you'll lose where before you would have won.
That sounds like a balance change. That sure sounds like what that is.
Well, Warlock also got hit with the Runed Mithril Rod. Used to cost 4, now it costs 5. Still does the same thing. Again, what it did was after you draw 4 cards, you reduce the cost of your hand, cost of cards in your hand by 1, and then you lose 1 durability, which meant 1 rod did this effect twice. And yeah, it was gross on 4.
It was.
Chat room also is not a fan of this card. It's like as soon as it's up on the screen, everyone's like, throw rotten tomatoes.
This was printed at 3. This was printed at 3 mana. And the only reason it didn't see play at the beginning of Stormwind was because the quest ticked at 6 and 7, and Flesh Giants had base cost 8, so you didn't need to discount anything if your Giants cost 0 on turn 4. Like, who cares? Doesn't matter. But as they slowly nerfed and slowed that format down, then this popped up and sped Warlock back up. Then they nerfed it to 4, slowed the format down. Then it came back at the end. And then they printed a large bird, and that was enough. And it's 5 mana for a card that sits there and does nothing until you do something after. This isn't Skull of the Minari, where like it does nothing but then drops a Void Lord into play or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This is 5 mana, survive, and then do stuff after. This is the only card I see being actually killed here. Won't miss it.
Hooray!
Won't miss it. Yeah.
Again, it's discounting your whole hand. I hate it.
5 mana for this is so much. It's so much mana to pay to do actual nothing and then set up for the next turn.
Yeah, no, it's especially at that point in the game where if you're going against an aggressive opponent or you're going against like just anybody really, like 5 mana is a lot of mana and a lot of turn to just pass without doing, like you said, like Skull that used to literally pull gigantic demons out of your hand that you had no right having at that point in the game. This isn't that. So yeah, I think this might be the one that we really just don't see anymore. Bloodsail Deckhand also got changed. This was another stat change. So old used to be 2 attack, 2 health. Now it is 2 attack, 1 health. This is the 1-drop pirate that the next weapon you play costs 1 less. So I think much like the stuff we've already talked about with this set of nerfs, I think, it has the pirate tag. So Quest Pirate Warrior is going to be playing this card, and that's not going to change. It's a 1-drop with a pirate tag.
So this was buffed September 21st from a 2/1 to a 2/2.
Didn't take
90
long.
days later.
Yeah.
No, we're forget about it. Don't worry about it. So I'm glad that this card is worse. I know I made the argument before, and I stand by the argument of we're still going to play it and it's going to lose slightly so often. I think this one in particular, your 1-drop wasn't supposed to be a 2/2 here anyways. That's the kind of thing you print if a class is really struggling, like Shivering Sorceress and Mage, which is, we'll get to Mage. But then Quest Warrior's really good in multiple formats, and so they can pull this one back. I think the popularity of that deck is enough, and the win rate is enough that if it keeps being played at the same rate that's being played at, I'm sure that they'll look at other nudges. It's a little bit stronger than they want it to be, and that's kind of what they say in the dev comment here.
Mm-hmm.
Questline Warrior end up slightly stronger than intended. So this is a nice way to pull that back a little bit, because, turn 2, 2/2/2s and make progress towards the weapon was a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say, quest completion too. Yeah. I think that Quest Warrior in particular, I think, is one of the more straightforward decks in the format. Like, you basically, does it say pirate, then you play it, and then eventually you get a reward that just automatically does stuff for you. So it was the most straightforward, I think, of a lot of the decks in the format. And I think it's good to make it a little bit less powerful, because I think, it was straightforward, it was popular. We're still going to see it. Again, this isn't nuking the deck at all. So I think this is just going to put it in a much better place. So you ready? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I think If I'm looking at the part of the quest pirate warrior equation that bugs me the most, I know people are expecting me to say smite off Juggernaut. No. I don't love suddenly dying
That's
from
me.
20,
I'm
but
those people.
no, it's the thing that surprised me is how much damage Defias Cannoneer is, the 3-mana 3/3 that when you attack it shoots out a couple cannonballs. That's really efficient for a lot of damage from hand. And it's hard to develop against it because sometimes just the cannonballs just kill your team out of nowhere with the weapon attacks. There are a bunch of times where either I've been playing the warrior or more often I've been playing against the warrior. They complete the quest with Cannoneer phase 2 with a weapon equipped. They get 4 cannonballs that turn and a weapon swing. It's impossible to stick a board against that. If I were looking in my crystal ball and if I said I want Quest Warrior to be worse against early game minion strategies, I would probably move Cannoneer to a 4-mana 3/4. I think I'd look at nudging that just a hair later and make it compete with Sword Eater. I wouldn't mind so much if they couldn't play something else easily alongside with it.
Yep, that's definitely fair. So are you ready to talk about the nerf that everyone was screaming for after day one?
I'm very excited to talk about this. Yes.
Okay, so
all right, let's
we got a nerf to Iron Deep Trog. So
an interesting nerf, an interesting creative nerf.
Used to say, so this is the 1-mana 1/2. Used to say, after your opponent casts a spell, summon a copy of this. Now it says, after your opponent casts a spell, summon another Iron Deep Trog. So it's not going to be overwhelming anymore with mounts and with dog biscuits that were getting put on this thing and making it just bigger and bigger and bigger. And then if you had to use a spell, you were in trouble. So it's yeah, I mean, I'm glad that they still have a 1-drop that you can play when you're going up against quest lines, because there are a lot of very powerful quest decks, and I like that there's some sort of like disruption slash like response that you can have to them just playing a 1-mana spell on turn 1, right? Like, it's not, or at least doesn't seem to me like it's the crazy downside that it used to be when it was just quests and not quest lines.
Yeah, it's... Oh, this card. Okay, so...
I thought you said you were ready to talk about it.
I am. So, context. Trog as a card. In design, you need to look at this as a safety valve. If your format gets too long on spells, fast spell-dense decks, then a card like this naturally gets better because it's designed to be good in specific situations, a powerful tech card, to counteract that and give the format some semblance of health. Frozen Shadow Weaver against all the Demon Hunters in Ashes. It stopped seeing play after that expansion, but when Demon Hunter was broken, you play the Freezy Face card, so they can't hit you with the Warglaives. Cult Neophyte in Stormwind. It suddenly went into every deck because there were spells everywhere, and we want to slow them all down, and everyone's playing Neophyte. Trog is different from those cards in that it was printed in the same environment where it was immediately needed. It's a safety valve that started open, and that felt weird because usually these things are printed and you don't think anything about it, and it's like, oh, this is everywhere. No, this was needed right away because they wanted to make sure when they printed the set that if it was combo heavy again, there was something to do about it. Boy, there sure was. But the splash damage this card caught was, the coin, opposing quests. The mirror match with this of my Trog, the best answer to your Trog, if we're both minion-based decks with buffs, if you're a hunter and you want to play Doggy Biscuit on 2, and I'm Paladin and I want to play Noble Mount on 2, if you play turn 1 Trog pass, best thing for me to do is play my own Trog. Because then you play your buff spell, but then I get my other Trog. Then I play mine, then you get your other Trog, and then it's just Trogs all the way down. That's too much. There are also really weird things that happened with this card. The original one, it would copy itself. It actually got blown up by some players that understood this more than me. They would wind chill my Trog. It copied Frozen. It was a frozen copy. They would board lock me, and then when it unfroze, they would Snowfall Guardian, and then I would lose the game. So now the copy here, this summons a fresh new 1/2 that is not frozen, and it doesn't copy any buffs with it. This is a Paladin nerf. This is a nerf to Paladin. This is not a nerf to Trog. This is a nerf to Paladin. Because Paladin will play noble mounts and hold the bridges and whatever other buffs they want. Librams, they throw some Librams on here. They'd throw buffs on this thing, and then they would kill you with the buff thing. Druid, I've been playing a lot of aggro Druid lately. Still good, by the way. The aggro taunt Druid, it's still really, really good. Played in the top 100 this week, and I killed people with 1/2 Trogs because they didn't respect it. Played a spell to kill my Oracle of Elune, because that's a scary card.
Mhm.
And then with the extra body on board that they made, I would cast Arbor up and my opponent would die. Still won it in Druid. Face Hunter, probably still pretty good, just because if I play this on one and you play your quest or a coin or whatever, this is better than Wolpertinger, which is a card we already play.
Mhm.
It's, if you need to stick a buff target, this makes sure that a removal spell has to either immediately be played or your opponent has to not do what they want to do, and then you get your buff spell. I think this is closer to what the vision of the card was. It looks like a complete deletion. I'm not sold on that yet. And people this morning were telling me this was deletion, and then posted later in the day of, well, I just lost a Trog. And I think there's still something there. You can still deal with it with single target removal. You can still deal with it with AoE. But if you're playing a deck with a bunch of buff spells in it, or you're playing a deck with a bunch of draw spells or whatever, you still get punished by this in a way that isn't immediately obvious if you're used to playing with the old version. I'm curious to see where this goes.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it'll be good to keep an eye on it. And I mean, I think this is the kind of change that I think it's in the long run, I think it's going to be okay. I think this is one of the changes that maybe didn't have to happen. However, don't crucify me for saying that. Yeah, like listen for the but. I think that this card, because it happened so early and therefore so often, caused a lot of real bad feelings. And so even if it's potentially like good for the game and good to have some sort of counterplay to all of those really early spells that are in this questline meta, I think that it just, it was one of those feels nerfs, maybe more so than this just absolutely has to be out of the game now nerfs. And they needed to do it sooner rather than later because player feelings and player feedback about this card was so negative. So, I mean, they didn't touch Owl, and that's everybody was calling for Owls and Trogs. Get rid of them, delete them forever. And
well, so the Owl deck's gone. That's don't play Owl TK. That deck is dead. That deck is gone. That was a Rod deck.
That was they did nerf Rod. Yeah, not Owl, but Rod.
and the next nerf that they did is also a total Owl nerf, and also the touch nerf is an Owl nerf. I don't think Trog got as big of a power level nerf as it seems, but also feels nerfs. I know what you're talking about, and you're 100% right. The play experience sucked, but a feels nerf doesn't mean that the card wasn't powerful.
Yes,
there were times when I would be playing Quest Rogue, which is a very minion heavy deck. It just plays a quest on one. I didn't have Extortion or Cutlass in hand. My opponent goes turn 1 Trog. Okay, I can't play my quest, so my deck doesn't work. Turn 2 Noble Mount. Okay, I'm dead. Okay, that's it. And it's not, I look at the aggregate statistics over the course of the game, then Trog isn't even the best one-drop in Paladin. I look at that game and I say that was 100% win rate, and I had 2 turns of agency, and they're gone. And if I'm looking, again, if I'm looking to expand the period in a game where I can play minions and win with board control and have more agency there, this needed to be adjusted. The issue and concern that they faced with this patch is if you don't nerf enough, then the things you don't touch are going to be crazy, and the other stuff's just going to suck. You're going to constrict the format. So they had to go wide with light touches across a whole bunch of stuff to bring it all down at once, because the format was balanced and fairly healthy, but there were some points that weren't fun. So they fixed the fun interaction points that were missing, but then had to bring the whole thing down at once, which is why we got 9 nerfs 2 weeks after an otherwise balanced expansion. So I think it's reasonable to hit this. When you lost to this, it felt like the old Gibberling openings, where it was just turn 2 and it's like, oh, they have 6 minions. I'm dead now. And getting that out of the game seems smart.
Yep, very fair. All right, so you mentioned it. Let's talk about it. Moarg Artificer got changed. So It used to cost 2 and be a 2/4. Now it costs 3 and it's a 2/5. And so this is the all minions take double damage from spells minion. We've seen it quite a lot in the Demon Hunter OTK combo, but as you said, Hat, it also has seen play recently in the Owl TK deck. So this change of 1 more mana and 1 more health so it can stick around longer. But yeah, 1 more mana, too much?
I'm glad this is probably dead. The Moarg is... This card has exclusively been used to exploit lifesteal for evil purposes. That's all it's been used for ever, and it's been very good at it. I don't care about the health. OTK Demon Hunter now has to spend 1 billion mana to make its thing happen. Cool, I'm glad that deck's worse. Owl TK can't really exploit this the same way. It would do... when you would use Rod, which used to cost 4, discount this, which used to cost 2, and Grimoire of Sacrifice, then you would end up with 1 mana Flame Strike. 1 mana, all your stuff takes 4. Usually that card costs 7. This costs 1. That's less.
Yep, 1 is less than 7.
Thank you. So... Now, like in OTK Demon Hunter, it's not free after Kurtrus. If you copy it with Philosophy, then like you still got to pay mana for it. It takes a little bit longer. The difference between 1 and 0 is enormous. And we look at the compound nerfs to Owl. Their main mana reduction engine costs more. Their main life gain removal engine costs more, and their healing heals less. Owl TK got eviscerated. It got like... the core functionality of the deck got hit in multiple places. If you continue to play it, good luck. I don't think it's going to get there. I just really don't. And this makes OTK Demon Hunter wasn't even good in the ladder. It was played in Worlds because it was good against Garrote Rogue. So I don't think that this card will see a lot of play anymore. It's still fine. You can play it in like Fell Demon Hunter or whatever. Now it survives your Immo Aura, I guess. But I think this is... enough of a nerf that the decks that played this when they needed it, they really needed it at a specific time, and you can no longer just tempo this out now. You have to, like, you play it on 3 and then it probably just dies. It's a good change and one of the harsher nerfs, and I'm cool with that.
All right, so all of those cards that we talked about are that's all for the nerfs, and so you can get your full dust for 2 weeks after today. So the one caveat to that is Bloodsail Deckhand, and that's because it's a core card. It is not a collectible one. So all the other, I guess the 8 other nerfed cards are eligible for full dust refunds. So let's talk a little bit about some buffs, because we did get some buffs, some exciting changes to some hero cards, starting with the hero power for Beaststalker Tavish. So this is the Hunter hero power with the new hero card. Used to be cost 3, now cost 2. Still does the same thing. It summons an animal companion, and that comes from the pool of animal companions, same as the spell. I like this. I want to pay less for something. Something that normally as a spell costs 3, and I can do this every turn for less. Seems really good.
Yeah, it's they made it better.
Yeah,
Cool.
They did. It's kind of the definition of a buff.
So the deck that has been the talk of the town in the Angry Chicken Discord, which you can be a part of if you join our Patreon, is Big Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Big Beast Hunter. This hunter is huge. It's a significant hunter. It plays Humongous Owl on purpose. Just cast that. There's no Warlock shenanigans here. We just want a big bird in play. That's all we want to do here. So we would play Tavish because the secrets are good, but then you would spend 3 mana for the hero power and you'd just be kind of left with, with only 7 mana left over. You can't play Leorox with that. Now you can do the hero power Leorox thing. You can get this out early. You can hero power play like a battering ram next to it if you prefer to go like mid beast. It feels better, and the card was so underwhelming at launch that I'm glad that they're making sure the hero cards that didn't see as much love get a little bit more love. And there were 2 of those that needed it, and this was one of them.
Yeah, and I think that, I've been asking for so long for some sort of hunter that isn't just an aggressive face hunter. And it felt like when hero cards came out, yay, everybody gets to do something super duper powerful. And then they revealed the hunter one, and it was like, oh, okay, so we're still just going to go face. Okay, thanks, bye. So this very much feels like a step in the right direction towards another way to play hunter that's going to be fun and viable. So I'm glad, because I'm really sick of face hunter and each iteration, changing by a couple cards here and there, but essentially playing the same way. So I'm excited about this. I'm really glad. And I'm glad that they're paying attention and trying to bring all of the hero cards in line with each other. Because, that's the whole point of this expansion, right? Is these hero cards. It's the culmination of their storytelling over the past year. So when some of the hero mercenaries just aren't even being looked at, that kind of felt bad. So I'm glad that Hunter is getting some love, as is Mage.
Yep. As is Mage, yeah. And by the way, that big Hunter deck, that's not a meme. That deck is like, you can win with that deck. It's pretty good. You can get there. But Mage did not get 1 buff. Mage did not get 2 buff. Mage got 3 buffs, including a double buff on a single card.
Oh, wait, what's the double buff?
The hero card got
the hero
buffs.
card. Okay, I was looking at the parrot and I was like, wait, no, I did. Okay,
no,
so
the parrot just the 1.
Yeah. So Gray Sage Parrot used to cost 8 and was 6/6, and now costs 6 and is a 4/5. So slight changes to the health to bring it in line with a typical 6-drop, but still has the same battle cry. So the Gray Sage Parrot's battle cry is repeat the last spell you've cast that costs 5 or more.
This is enormous. This is a huge deal. The main thing that this tells you, you look at the parrots. Historically, they're really good when you play something on curve that's awesome, and then the next turn you get to repeat the awesome thing. So at 8, that meant they expect you to repeat Mask of Cthulhu, or Mass Polymorph, or Flame Strike, or I don't know, whatever, mage spells. Not Rune of the Archmage, because that's a 9-drop, and so this does not cost 10. So what this is now saying, Arcane Overflow, which came out in the set, is a 5-mana spell, arcane spell, that says deal 8 damage to an enemy, make an elemental with power, with attack and health equal to the amount of excess damage. So you hit a 1/1, it's a 7/7, you hit a 4/4, you get a 4/4. That's a 5-mana spell that exclusively targets enemies. Can't whiff, right? Never targets your own stuff. So you play that on 5, then you play this on 6. If your opponent is playing minions that don't have Divine Shield, their stuff died 2 turns in a row and you got something 2 turns in a row. And then on turn 7, spoilers, you're going to play the new buffed hero card, which recasts the arcane spell, which also kills the next thing. There's 3 turns in a row of all of your stuff taking 8 and me getting stuff. That's quite the sequence. And you can tell that they redesigned the cards here with that sequence in mind. And that seems like something that's going to be good against decks that try and play minions on curve.
Yep, that's fair. I also saw somebody, I can't remember if it was a tweet or somebody in our Discord, that said they got Mask of Cthulhu 4 times by turn.
Yes.
Yeah, 7, I think. And that was like...
That was Andrew is living. Andrew Brown, over formerly the Happy Hearthstone. He works for HS Replay now. And he said that he got masked 4 times. And I'm just glad that people are following the mask mandate.
Right. Okay. It was on Twitter because I liked that reply because ridiculous.
You did. Yes.
I was like, I knew I saw that somewhere. But yeah, so I think that there's a lot of things you can do with this parrot now. And it feels a lot better at this point in the game, right? The 6 mana, paying a little bit for the health and the attack for that drop in mana, I think is totally fine. A 4/5 is still decent because that battle cry is so powerful. So I'm looking forward to giving Mage another try, because I haven't played Mage in a really long time. They've kind of been in that same bucket as Hunter, where I was like, I'm just doing the same sort of thing I've always been doing, because I didn't enjoy like the just spell Mage. Like I said earlier in the podcast, I like minion strategies. I like putting bodies on the board. So just playing spells all the time wasn't as fun for me. So I'm glad that now there's something that's kind of a mix of the two, which again, spells do feel very magey, but I like a mix of minions. So this looks like it's giving me both. So I'm happy. I'm also happy that Magister Dawngrasp got buffed because we revealed this card and nobody played it.
It was easily the worst hero.
Yeah.
So
and we tried, we were so hyped
Yeah.
about it. And we were like, we have to be so excited. And we're like, but it's not scabs.
No, it's not Cariel, it's not Scabs, it's
Yeah.
not Tamsin, it's not Brucan, it's not any of them. So this card got 2 changes. The instead of costing 8, it costs 7. And the hero power used to say deal 1 damage, honorable kill, gain +2 damage for the rest of the game. Now it says hero power deal 2 damage. So it's got a base 2 damage and comes out of turn faster. Much better card, because being cheaper is better and dealing more damage is better. So cheaper damage. Cool. I'm down. And again, the sequence I just talked about, Overflow, Parrot, Dawngrasp. Good luck trying to stick a board. And just to clarify on the Divine Shield thing, because we have some playtesters in chat here. And by playtesters, I mean our listeners and also Celestalon. So if you target a Divine Shield minion, it worked kind of the same way as Explosive Runes or Piercing Shot. Whenever you divide damage between a minion and something else, you do the math just based on the minion's health. Pretend the text box is blank. So if you target a 2/2 Divine Shield, just pretend it's a 2/2, it takes 2, you get a 6/6. So no matter what they play, no matter what they put out there, unless they're 8/8s, you're going to get something. And if they're 8/8s, then cool, you killed their 8/8s. I'm okay with that deal.
That also seems
That's
good.
fine.
Yeah, I'd rather just get rid of an 8/8 and not have anything left on my side either. But, you know, like them having an 8/8, that's not good.
No. And the hero power is a big bunch of damage. And you know what else makes the hero power do more damage, Joss?
What would that be? Wildfire?
It would be Wildfire.
And this got a change that is just kind of just a wording change to make it work the way I would have thought that it's supposed to work. So it used to say increase the damage of your hero power by 1. Now it says increase the damage of your hero power by 1 this game, to make it clear and to make it work in a way that is a persistent aura. So then if you play Dawngrasp, then your hero power will be deal 3 damage to start instead of 2 damage because you've played a Wildfire. So it now continues on when you change your hero power instead of getting weirdly disrupted. It's a persistent change now to your hero power, regardless of what that hero power is.
Yeah, the way Dawngrasp was coded before, the hero power flip over from playing a new hero card was actually the last thing that happened. So sometimes Dawngrasp would recast the Wildfire and then erase it by changing hero powers immediately after at the same time. That was sad, and we don't want to be sad. And Mage players were sad, and I don't blame them, because even though they were the most popular class in Standard for 8 months, and I understand they were the most popular class in Standard for 8 months, but they were doing the one thing. They were playing Incanter Slow, and then other
shenanigans.
spells. and that was what was happening. And that was fun. But it was the same play pattern for 8 months. And it isn't like Librams where you take the Librams, then you build a deck around it. It's like, no, we're just going to do this thing where it's spells, draw, kill you. Sometimes that did change into quest on 1, spells, draw, kill you. But outside of that change as to your 1-drop, it's pretty consistent. This is a different way to play Mage. And early results today, I'm not going to say promising yet. I'm going to say people are excited to try it, and it's doing a bunch of damage. Interesting. I'm interested. I would like this to work because I want to hit people. And Mordresh Fire, I remember that they buffed. Wildfire used to cost 2, Mordresh used to cost 10. Wildfire costs 1 now and persists through heroes. Mordresh used to be a 10 mana 10/10 that if you've dealt 10 damage with your hero power, it hits your opponent's face and board for 10. Now it's an 8 mana 8/8 that still has that. The curve of, if you were able to get the hero power going, and you're able to curve into Dawngrasp on 7 into Mordresh on 8, Mordresh on 8 is ridiculous. Your entire board is dead. They have an 8/8, and you just got pyroblasted. Absurd, insane. And that deck is playing Potion of Illusion, 2 Potions of Illusion. So you better clear that Mordresh unless you want that to happen again the next turn. I think that there's something here. It's interesting. It looks cool. I'm excited to try it. It's probably not going to be as good right away. There might end up being like a tier 2-ish, tier 3-ish deck here. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be peak competitive. It's something for Mage players to do that isn't Incanter's Flow, blah, blah, kill you eventually after I draw a bunch of cards. Cool. I'm with it.
Because that's how every Mage player is sitting there playing. Incanter's Flow, blah, blah, whatever. I just kill you.
I'm updating the show title.
We also got some updates to Battlegrounds. So Sneed got an armor change. So going from no armor to 2 to 5 armor. So a tier 1 to a tier 2 minion. And that is due to the change to the hero power cost. So it used to cost 1, now cost 2. Still does the same thing. Give a friendly minion death rattle, summon a random minion of the same tavern tier, which I think is good because he was quite powerful, I think, at just 1 mana. So I think that this is a really good change. Or not 1 mana, sorry, 1 gold. Gotta get my brain out of standard and change over to Battlegrounds here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is a good change.
A lot of people were talking about how it was kind of free to stack a bunch of 6-drops on your 6-drop. That should have a cost. That should cost mana or gold.
Gold,
That should cost something. Yeah. The next time, every time you use Sneeds, you overload in standard in your next standard game. I don't know.
You enter standard game with 30 overloaded mana.
If I save the coin in standard, I should be able to take it with me to Battlegrounds and buy an extra early.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad there's an adjustment here, and there are a couple others too. I was reading about this one, about Tamsin.
Yeah, so Tamsin's hero power. So this just is an entire change, a crazy change, and I think she's much more powerful now. So her hero power used to be 0 gold, start of combat, destroy your lowest health minion and give its health to all your others. Now it costs 1, and at the start of combat, you destroy your lowest health minion, so still the same in that way, but you give its stats to all your others, which is attack as well, and that is a huge change and a huge buff to the hero power. So I think, just because it costs 1 gold now, I still think it's worth playing, and I think she just got way better.
So playtesting. Apparently, in playtesting, they found that it was so much better that they really wanted to make sure they didn't overdo it, so they threw a gold on there. Because, global buffs to your entire board plus a targeted death rattle, pretty good, pretty powerful, and I'm not surprised that it came with an adjustment. We'll see if it goes back to 0. But again, paying for stuff is cool for the game, and so I'm glad that they tested out and said, "Hey, this is a lot better, but let's pull it back a little bit
rein
just
it
to
in.
make sure."
Yeah, and they can always, like you said, they can always drop it back to 0. But I think starting it out at 1 means that we don't have to deal with a Christmas with a way OP Tamsin. So this is good.
Yeah. In another format,
yes,
we've had enough of OP Tamsins.
We also got a whole bunch of armor changes. So Scabs got less armor, Cariel got more armor, Deathwing got more armor, Maleficent got more armor, Sarfang got more armor. Did anyone get less? Wait, okay, yeah. Patches got less, and Gallywix also got a lot less. He went from a tier 4 to a tier 2. So again, armor is the kind of thing that I'm glad that they're messing around with and seem to be open to changing as kind of the meta changes. So I think all of those are good updates to the heroes. We also got some minion updates over on the Battleground side. So prized Promo Drake, which is used to be a 5/5 dragon that would give adjacent minions +1/+1 for each friendly dragon. Now it's just a 3/3, which I think is good because this minion just seemed really good. And there needs to be a little bit of a cost to this, because most of the other ones that we've seen like this, like Quillbore has a similar minion, but then only buffs Quillbores. This buffs any type of adjacent minion based on each friendly dragon. So I think that this is better. I'm a fan of this. It was too good, and 4-drops in general have been too good. So this is a good change.
So, do you play enough BGs to have an opinion on Terragosa? Because I've seen a lot of opinions on Terragosa very recently.
Yeah, Terragosa is she's interesting design, but I think she's too powerful for sure.
Yeah. This seems like nerfing around Terragosa. I don't play enough BGs to really understand what strategies are being enabled or limited here. This seems like whatever they're nerfing with Promo Drake, they want what it's hitting to still be viable, but to make it a little bit more vulnerable.
Well, yeah, because I think so. You would put a Terragosa on either side of this minion, and because the Terragosas would keep any buffs that they earned in combat, they would just get really, really big when they're not supposed to. And then they would keep things like if the Divine Shield from the 2-1, if the Divine Shield happened to land on one of your Terragosas, then all of a sudden you get this big, huge minion that also has Divine Shield, and they can get really out of hand really quickly. So,
yeah. I don't know enough about BGs to comment on this, but I'm glad they're making an adjustment. I read today as well I think this is from either Dom or Cora, that there's going to be a large new content drop in the 0.2 patch as usual, not too far off. It seems like that January is likely, so they didn't want to nerf too hard before that comes out.
Yeah, which makes sense. We also saw a change to Dazzling Light Spawn. So this was a 4/5, is now a 2/5. This is the Avenge 2. Elementals in Bob's Tavern have +1/+1 for the rest of the game. This could also get out of hand really quickly, and being a 4/5 and an elemental made it so that it was buffable in a lot of cases, as well as just having that base 4 attack meant it was going to probably trade with some stuff around the time that you were originally getting it. And that always kind of felt bad, because you were like, man, there doesn't seem to be a big downside to playing this. Again, 4-drops were very strong. So I think it was good that this got hit with a nerf. I think it's still good. I think people are still going to play it. It's like early Nomi, right? So especially if you've got a good Avenge board. So yeah, this Light Spawn I think is still good.
Celesta was talking about tripling it to 4s. I remember her saying that, and I remember that being new and different. And it seems like maybe that's a strategy that they want to be not as good as it was. So these make sense, that if you triple into a utility or value 4, you don't get free stats on curve that go with it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think it's a good design decision. I think it's going to make the format a lot better. So we also got a couple of other updates in Mercenaries and Arena. Hat, did you want to talk about Mercenaries at all? I don't know. I haven't touched it in forever, so.
I will be honest. I still enjoy playing the mode, and I'm still actually in a weekly league format series where it's play Mercenaries so often. Ever since Ultrax come out, I just want to play as much constructed as possible. The change that they did make here, heroic level 30 bounties are now guaranteed to include at least one pile of legendary coins from that bounty. So for players that are looking to grind out mercs, especially the new mercs, if you were a full-time mercs tryhard and you play heroics to get coins, to get those abilities up to snuff, this just makes sure that you don't whiff. Nice change. Small change, but nice. They have not had the time to finish Mercs 1.1 or whatever. We have Mercs 1.0. There have been clear demands and requests and desires for some serious quality of life changes, some bigger adjustments to how mechanics work. There have been some comments over in the Mercs Discord where I think the Paul, the lead developer, said, I'm really excited for the quality of life changes coming, and some of the next mercs aren't going to have their equipment gated behind tasks. They're going to try different ways to get people equipment. They're trying some stuff, but it's still early on. The mode came out 2 months ago. 2 months. It feels like forever.
It
Yeah.
does. It feels like it came out a long time ago. And I mean, it was relegated for me very quickly into the pile of modes I don't play, which I feel a little bit bad about. But like, when I get Mercenaries packs, I'm like, I wish there was just a delete button. Like, these are just gonna take me time to open, and they're just annoying.
I mean, it's just kind of a slightly slower delete button, but yeah, it's like I see what you're saying. I played it every day until Alterac came out, and now I am fully in Alterac Valley, and we all know Alterac Valley takes forever to get through.
It
So like,
does.
I'm still doing that. Um, I still have affection for the mode, but like, I just kind of stopped for now. I'll pick it back up a little bit later, but there's a lot of talk among Mercenaries players. One of the new mercs, Valera, has made ripples with balance issues in that she speeds herself up and then speeds up your entire team while she is stealthed. And I know that there is a lot of concern around that from the Mercenaries faithful, to the point where I know people that were previously invested are just kind of also stepped away because they didn't enjoy the experience of that, and they didn't see balance on the near horizon. So we've got a lot of unanswered question about mercs coming up. Seems like a nice change, but I'm not grinding heroic bounties, so it's not going to be any different for me. But I'm hopeful that for the people that are still doing that, this makes your life a little easier.
That's very fair. So, Hat, we've spent about an hour talking about the patch. We haven't even touched on what I'm super excited to talk about. It's going to be a 3-hour show. I know it. It's going to be a 3-hour show.
Oh boy, I got to call out of work tomorrow.
Right? Okay, so let's get into it because, oh man, I'm just so stoked about just this whole conversation. So, Hearthstone Esports is getting an overhaul. I'm so excited.
Oh boy.
Yeah, there is so much. Like, when I say overhaul, this is not like small changes like we've seen to Grandmasters where they add a week of like last hero standing or something. There is so much. So we talked a little bit about the World Championship off the top of the show. There is something like I did want to chat with you about, Hat, and that's viewership. We knew that viewership for Grandmasters wasn't kind of where they wanted it to be, but the World Championship peaked at less than 24K viewers, which the championship in 2019 had almost 300,000. So I don't know what's been going on. I think that some of the comments that I've seen floating around in Discord and Twitter have been kind of what we talked about a little bit earlier. A lot of decks that we'd seen in the past, a lot of OTK strategies and a combo heavy meta that kind of all came together in this fan exhaustion kind of way. But man, I don't know. It like 90% viewer loss. It just seems crazy to me. I think it really needed a change. I think is obvious to everybody. Something wasn't working here.
Yeah, I guess we just say the thing that we say every time. YouTube isn't the platform for esports.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that is going to change. They did talk a little bit about the Battleground side of things and how that will be on Twitch, but I think that they are probably locked in for, I think it's probably one more year. Maybe
12 months and 12 days from today. Who's counting? Yeah.
Yeah.
Until
so then the
end-
agreement will be
yeah.
done, which will be nice.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. This whole agreement, again, as for anyone that's listening, just to make sure that we're clear in the context, the Activision Blizzard King, ABK, made a deal with Google to use Google developer services because ABK makes software and Google makes stuff that helps people make software. So they made a deal that involved a big number that we don't know. And that number went down because they said, oh, YouTube can host our esports, which are valuable for Call of Duty and Overwatch and Heroes of the Storm and whatever. And then also Hearthstone was there, which has been described in interviews as a throw-in.
Yeah.
Which, it did, like, Well, this isn't League of Legends, I understand, but the Hunter Races World Championship against Viper did 100,000 people on Twitch. Like, that's something. That's a number. It's a bunch of digits. But YouTube is not the platform for esports. Yes, you can get views, but it's not where people are. I understand that it's kind of silly that it's a different browser tab and that matters, but it does.
Well, and
So
I've seen a lot of comments as well about the discoverability. And I mean, the only reason that it's super easy for me to find the Hearthstone streams on YouTube is because I don't spend a lot of time on YouTube. So YouTube knows when I open it, what I'm looking for is the Hearthstone live stream. It's like the top thing recommended to me because I never use the platform. But anyone who is on YouTube for any amount of time has a really hard time actually knowing when Hearthstone is live. Even I've seen complaints of people saying that they've hit the bell and still don't get notifications when the stream goes live. So the platform itself has some problems. And I think that there's kind of a combination in like, I don't know if it's like marketing or like, I mean, I've seen people say they didn't even know that the World Championship was this weekend until they saw a Soddle tweet, which is one of the complaints that we had about the China tournament a little while ago, where I was like, I didn't even know it was a thing until I saw Slyssa tweet that they were going to play something. So, yeah, I think that the problem might be twofold. It's partly a YouTube platform issue, and I think it's also partly a marketing issue. And I don't know necessarily how you get better at that or how you spread the word. I mean, there were tweets, and it's just, again, on the platform, you're just going to see some things and not see other things. And, you know, like, that's fair, but there's just got to be a better way to, I don't know, put it in the game maybe as like a pop-up announcement at the beginning. Like, you launch Hearthstone and it's
on
like
the launcher.
Yeah, it's on the launcher, but it doesn't pop up as a notification in the game.
Twitch is this thing where the people that watch Twitch literally always have a Twitch tab open, and then there's a pop-up in the top right of that tab, which they're currently in because they always have a Twitch tab open. And then they click it and they go watch Worlds. And YouTube is not that. It's not that bad. But it's not, hey, this thing that you like is starting right now, go. And the people that watch Twitch are always on Twitch. They have a tab open, a second monitor, that's the Twitch monitor, they click it and they go.
It's
Josh,
so
you had
true.
to close your Twitch
It's
tab.
so true.
You had to close your tab before starting the show.
Like, I mean, I know it sounds like Hat is joking, but it's really, really true. Like, I have my following page open on Twitch. It's like my home page for my browser. As soon as I open it, it's like, here's your following page. And I'm like, great. Turning on Slyssa. Okay, I'm going to turn on Hybrid Panda. I'm going to watch me some Beardageddon, like cycling through my favorite streamers of my favorite games. Let's go. And I just always have it on in the background, like hanging out with my friends.
It feels like YouTube is a grocery store with the really nice hot food counter and the picnic table. It's like a Publix. Garrett, I wish you were here. We would have a conversation. But it's like a grocery store that also has the prepared food that you can just take and eat right there. And Twitch is a restaurant. And I understand that if I want some food and I don't want to deal with it, I can go to the grocery store and get it. But I'm probably just going to go to the restaurant because they do the thing that I want, even though they do less things overall. The thing that I want, they're custom made to do that thing, and that's what I want right now. So if I want to watch people play video games and I want the website to tell me when that's happening, I go to twitch.tv. If I want to watch pre-recorded video content, and I watch a lot of YouTube. And I can find the stream, but like, you shouldn't have to be on 3 Hearthstone podcasts to know when Worlds is. And it's like, I'm not going to compare it to the CN tournament. There were a lot of extenuating circumstances here. Yeah. But Hearthstone Esports just hasn't had great visibility for a while, and part of it has been the program's design. And so I'm glad they're revamping that, and the numbers were not great. I don't usually care about the numbers, and I think that attention spans are shrinking in the pandemic digital entertainment era, but there's no metric with which you can say that this event was a draw. Even though I watched it and enjoyed the games, it was not a draw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, I think we already talked a little bit about what actually happened in the World Championship, so we can skip that part and we can start talking about the changes coming to Standard. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about before we kind of got into all of the nitty gritty about the World Championship and the changes to Masters Tour and all the other Grandmaster stuff, this totally slid like under my radar. I missed the actual announcement that A-Bar did during the World Championship, so I just kind of like caught up through the blog post later. But then I saw him tweet, "There's a new format." What?
It's there. Okay, so this is not the new format. This is a new format. So we got to be really
right.
clear.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So we're not getting rid of Conquest. We're not getting rid of Last Hero Standing. There's probably still going to be a mix of all those things. We're adding another thing to the mix, which like,
Yes.
I guess we had Conquest with a ban would be the most recent like new format. But even then that was like Conquest with a twist.
There was a really terrible recent format that you probably forgot about because they did it for 1 week of GM and then never did again. The Bring 10 Ban 6 format. Remember that week?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what was
This is a
Specialist?
better.
Specialist is the other format. Yeah.
So I think GM Season 1 was Specialist, which lasted 6 months, which was 1 deck, 2 sideboarded versions. Then they did Bubble Conquest, Shielded Conquest, where you bubble a deck and they can't ban it. And so what that ended up being, that was custom designed, actually. I think that format was smart for what it was trying to do.
I enjoyed that one.
Yeah.
Personally.
Conquest is a format. You both bring 4 decks and then you each ban 1. What you're trying to do is find a deck to bully. You ban your bad matchup and then you pick 1 deck that you can beat 4 times and go for good matchups. So the decks look weird and you can't take them to ladder. It's 3 times. But you try and bring 4 decks that beat it because one of them's getting banned. So you want to make sure that no matter what they ban, you can beat whatever you're bullying.
Right.
But you can't bring those decks to ladder because you might not play against the deck or play against the thing you're banning. They don't translate all that well. Shielded Conquest, you can't hard target, so you just bring 4 ladder decks, and then people can net deck them instantly and do well because they want to play what they see on TV. I think that part was smart. But it wasn't interesting just watching a bunch of people playing a bunch of ladder decks, so it didn't work out. They tried a bunch of things in Grandmasters, including there was this weird week where they did this format where you have to bring a deck from every class, from all 10. Then you each ban 6 classes. And out of the remaining 4 that you have to win with 3 of them, and you can play any of them. And it ended up being who can build the best terrible decks.
Yeah.
And it was awful to watch.
It was so
and the players
bad.
hated it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It was probably the worst Hearthstone esports experience I've ever had. It was the worst. It was worse than Specialist, and everybody hated Specialist, or a lot of people, not everybody. A lot of people really didn't like Specialist. They didn't like it from a viewer standpoint, and this was worse because it was just like, what are the most terrible classes in the format? How are you going to try to make them viable? But you don't have to play against anything good. You just have to play against other bad decks. But then, no one wanted to play anything that the players were playing because they were all objectively terrible. So, it was an awful format. So now
it was Hungry Crab Mirrors because there were a couple decks that could only be built. Paladin and Shaman were both really, really bad at the time, so players had to build Murlocs. So people just put Hungry Crabs in all their decks because
how much
if you
we
knew
love
you
crabs.
could play against Murloc, it was terrible.
Yeah, it was really bad. So it's not that. So the new format is called Trio, and it's quite interesting because I think it's going to be very flexible. And the way it's described in the rules is that either Blizzard or the tournament organizer, because Blizzard is not going to be the only tournament organizer for all the Masters Tour events, can specify that Trio is going to be the format. And then they provide a list of available trios for you to play. And they are sets of 3 classes. So you can repeat classes. So there could be Mage in a bunch of the different trio choices, and it could be Mage Paladin in a bunch of the trio choices. But then it'll be Mage Paladin Demon Hunter, Mage Paladin Warrior, Mage Paladin Shaman, and you as a player have to choose a trio. So and then create decks from those classes. I think this sounds really cool. And then so there can be the tournament organizer it doesn't sound like there has to be representation from every class. Like the tournament organizer could like soft ban a class if it's like too powerful or something. Like it sounds like it has the potential to be very flexible and very interesting.
The tournament organizer curates a restaurant menu of a bunch of 3-class entrees. You could have Demon Hunter, Mage, Rogue. You could have Paladin, Priest, Warrior. But whatever they pick, you get a menu. These are the groups you're allowed to choose. Everybody has the same options. It's not like if one player takes one, the other player loses them. Just pick the 3 class you want to play. The other players don't know what you've picked.
Yeah, nobody knows. Yeah, it's like a blind pick. So you just choose what you want to play, not knowing what everybody else has.
Then you go build those 3 decks. Again, nobody sees your decks. Then you submit. And then everybody sees at the end, after all deck submission is done, which bucket you picked and which decks you built from that bucket. No bans, you just play.
Yeah, you just play.
Yeah. I have no idea how to evaluate this.
Yeah, no substitutions.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious to see how this plays out. I think it could be it displaces a lot of the burden on the TO of being good at making buckets.
Yeah.
And there are times where you get it wrong and everybody has the same bucket, but then maybe someone really clever is like, well, if I know they're all going to pick this obviously OP bucket, I take this other bucket that counters that bucket, if there is one. But you could also end up with buckets with underrepresented classes or really interesting choices. I'm curious to see if there's going to be a methodology there.
This, I think, gets even more interesting when we're living in a meta where each class has multiple viable strategies. So, because if you have like, okay, so we talked earlier about the changes to the hero cards and Hunter being, I think, probably the most polarized. Like you're playing either an aggro face Hunter or a crazy big late game bomb Hunter. So those are 2 very different strategies, and yet you could pick the same bucket. So then if you're doing, like you said, Hat, where, you know, you think everyone's going to pick one bucket, and then so you pick the counter bucket, but then you're like half those people that chose that bucket that had Hunter in it, half of them are going aggro lineups and half of them are going like big late game bomb control things or whatever, then it's like, oh man, now I can't even target that bucket. So I feel like this is just like the 4D chess of tournament formats. Like there's gonna be somebody who picks right. They're going to look like an absolute genius and they're gonna look unstoppable. And I think it's going to create a lot of really fun storylines, I think, in these Master Tour events. I'm really excited for this. This seems like the most interesting format that we've heard of in a long time. It might be really difficult for the players. The players might hate it. I'll admit I haven't seen too many people talking about this format, but I think from a viewer perspective, I am stoked.
Yeah, there's enough depth just in hearing you talk about it right now. There's clearly enough depth here for this to be interesting. Even if the TO makes a mistake and messes up the buckets, you can still like you can figure that out and take advantage of what you think other people are going to do. There's a lot of cool game theory here. I like the possibilities available here. And yeah, I haven't heard the last format that I thought of this way that I found was interesting was Strike, which I think is really cool but very involved. And that's years ago now and very obscure. Where it's I'm not gonna, listeners, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. But this is cool.
This is
I
very
will
cool.
admit, when I saw Trio, I'm like, Trinity's coming back. It's not Trinity, where 3 players would all be mic'd up and play against another 3 players. I really enjoyed those streams back in the day.
Can you imagine a Masters tour like that though? Like, how would you even figure out like who wins and who feeds into the World Championship from that?
I don't know. Let's try it. Let's figure it out. It was so enjoyable to listen to smart people talk to each other about the game and verbalize their thoughts and come to good plays because of it. It was very enjoyable to see that. But this format is cool. And also from a viewer complexity standpoint, you have to do the 4D chess when you're building the decks.
Yes.
But if you're just watching it on TV, it's just
It's the
playing
same
cards.
it's the same as any other conquest tournament, because that's how, like, there's no ban because you're only picking 3 decks. So everyone picks the 3 decks, and then you just go into a tournament and you have to win with all 3 of those decks. And that's it. So the actual play of the tournament will be very familiar to everybody. So yeah, we should talk a little bit about where Trio could potentially see some play, and that is at the Masters Tour event. So just to clarify, for 2022, all of the Masters Tour events are going to be online only. They are targeting in-person events for the Fall Championship and the World Championship, which makes me go, in-person World Championship? Maybe BlizzCon coming back? Who knows? We'll see. But yeah, the Fall Championship and the World Championship have very specific invites, so they don't need to worry about, 400 players traveling and all that kind of stuff. So all of those larger Masters Tour events will be online, but then the smaller pool of the Fall Championship and the World Championship, which each have 16 players, those will be done on potentially asterisk safety first, will be done in person, which will be cool. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the World Championship. Instead of 8 players like we had this year, there's going to be 16. And the goal for that is to expand opportunities for players to reach the World Championships. And Grandmasters is no longer the only way in. So there's going to be 6 Masters Tours and 2 seasonal championships. 8 players from those seasonal championships are going to the World Championship. Stay with me. This can get a little bit complicated. Here, let me get the graphic up. All right, here we go.
Oh, we got the graphic.
We got the graphics. So yeah, we have 8 players from the seasonal championships. We have 4 players from China's Gold Series. We have 3 players from Grandmasters Season 1 and 1 player from Grandmasters Last Call. And you might be thinking, hey, wait a minute. What do you mean Grandmasters Last Call? What do you mean only 1 Grandmaster player from the second season of the year? What's going on? Grandmasters is going to be phased out. Yay!
How do you feel about that, Joss?
How do you think I feel about that, Hat? Honestly, I think
yeah.
Grandmasters was it was like Hearthstone was trying to be traditional sports, and it didn't really work out. And I think that there were a lot of reasons for that. But in the end, if your players in Grandmasters are talking about a combination of how high stress of a situation it is, how much of their time they're losing by committing to this format, and how it's not worth that trade-off of their time, like, those are some pretty significant complaints. And they should be, the best of your Hearthstone players. So, I mean, if they don't feel like your setup is worth their time, like, that's just never going to be a good situation. So I think we saw a lot of people either walking away or saying that they were not going to return once they were relegated. And, it just, Grandmasters had a lot of problems and a lot of really bad feelings around it. So I think, although Masters Tours aren't perfect either, I do think that they're trying to address a lot of the concerns that the player base had been voicing over the last couple of years. So I'm very, very happy about this.
So I'm going to read a tweet that I lost the tab for. Here it is. From Luna, the Grandmaster. GM made me feel a million more times burnt out. Deck submissions right after we play only gives a couple days to breathe. I can't take a season off without losing my job. HCT allowed me to choose my engagement level. GM makes everything all or nothing. So when GM was first announced, they had 48 invites. And if you weren't on the list, good luck getting in. 2 players relegated per region per season.
First season, yeah.
Yep. It was really hard to get in. It seemed arbitrary and high pressure. And then when you're out, good luck getting back in.
Mm-hmm.
So people that didn't get invited wanted to quit. Many did. Then when GM was going, many people that were in it wanted to quit. And they did. Some people quit when they got relegated because I'm never going to get back in. Some people quit when they won Masters Tours like Dog because it was just not worth it to him to give up weekend streams and compete in this game that he didn't want to play anymore and be limited when it was less money than what he was making when he was streaming. Now, not everyone's Dog. Most people are
Right.
not Dog. But it's worth noting that people quit when it was announced and people quit when it was going. And now that it's announced that it's winding down, a bunch of people in GMs have said polishing my resume and looking for the next big thing. So a program that makes people quit when it starts, when it's going, and when it ends probably needs to go.
Yeah. Man,
Now-
I hadn't seen very many people saying they were looking for the next thing. Oh man, that's awful.
Well, so Monsanto had a really, really good point about this, where the previous system, a privileged few got a salary to really make a living playing Hearthstone. And this went way further in countries that had a favorable exchange rate with the dollar. Really, really big for Latin American pros, really, really big for Eastern European pros. But EU was tough. We've talked about in the show. That region is so incredibly dense. It's really, really hard to get in. But it was, those players were full-time Hearthstone players. It wasn't a crazy salary by American standards, but it was enough to say, you can get your base living expenses met and build off of that as a full-time Hearthstone player. And he said, now instead of a system where a privileged few get to make a living off Hearthstone esports, we have a much fairer system where nobody does. I found that very interesting.
Yeah, there have been a lot of comments about the prize pool, and we'll talk about the prize pool a little bit later on once we kind of go through how everything's going to look. But yeah, it's interesting in that there's a $3 million budget, but it doesn't feel like that because that's spread out over so many events and so many players. So it doesn't feel like you're getting $3 million worth of salaries, I guess.
Yeah, well, and that was the Hearthstone esports budget is not a lot. I know $3 million sounds a lot.
Well, it sounds a lot
League
to
of
me and you,
Legends.
but
Yeah. I mean, but League of Legends recently had to pull back from $100 million per year, which is, it's a lot of money. Now, again, League of Legends is the thing in esports. Riot spends more because they want to be the name, not a name. I get
Right.
it. But Hearthstone esports had to do different stuff with the same amount of money. And that means they're ripping off the Band-Aid. GM wasn't the right fit for Hearthstone esports. It wasn't, the people that got relegated out were really unhappy. The people that didn't make it in were unhappy. And now that it's winding down, the people that were in it are really unhappy. And again, I want to make sure that I'm really clear about this. The people that were previously getting paid to play Hearthstone that are no longer going to get paid to play Hearthstone, especially the newer people that made it in, that made GM this year and then find out this is it, that's a negative experience. They're not happy about it. I don't blame them.
Yeah, and I think that the thing is, though, like, if you were ever going to change the system and you were going to phase things out, I think this is a better way to do it than what we've seen Hearthstone do in the past. Because in the past, we've seen Hearthstone just either straight up not give us any information or pull the rug right out from under us. And I'm saying us when what I'm meaning is pro players who are counting on, events and results to make their money. So, I mean, like, I think this is the most fair way to do it in that there are still going to be 2 Grandmaster seasons. Now, the first season of the year is going to have 48 players, the same as always. However, it's only going to be a 4-week long event. Then from that 4-week season, there is going to be a season 2, which is going to be the, last call, last chance, whatever. And that is going to be made up of, it's right in front of my face. Last call. Way to go, Joce. Way to read. So it's going
there it is. I see it.
Yeah. It's going to be made up of 4 GM players. So it's going to be the top 4 players from season 1 in each region. So America's, APAC, and Europe. And they are going to be combined with the top 4 players from the Masters Tours, and it's going to be the last 3 Master Tour events of 2021 are going to count towards it, and then the first 3 Masters Tour events in 2022 are going to count towards it. So the top 4 players out of those 6 tournaments combined are going to make it into this last call, this final season of Grandmasters. So yeah, there's going to be one global region of 16 players, and they're going to play out the second season. And then whoever wins that, so of those 16 players, there will be one person who will get an invite to the World Championship. So they still get a year of competition, even if it is truncated. I mean, I don't know I'm sure that they're only going to get 4 weeks of pay instead of a normal Grandmaster season. So that also kind of sucks, but they could have just said Grandmasters is over, but instead we still get a year. So
as a person that is not a Hearthstone Grandmaster, I think ending the program is correct. I bet if you ask the people that are Hearthstone Grandmasters, they disagree with that. And
well, some of them might, because
yeah.
I do think that there are still a lot of concerns, like you outlined it from Luna's tweet. It was not a great system.
Yeah, it wasn't a great system, but it still was a system.
Yeah, and it was still a steady, reliable paycheck, right? But I think the whole relegation thing, while it was something that needed to happen, just created a whole lot of stress for the players that were in danger of relegating. And a lot of them, like, once they got relegated, they were done with the game. And I just, oh man, that seeing a lot of those like retirement posts and like, okay, thanks, bye. Like, just, oh man, it felt awful, because those are a lot of names that have been with Hearthstone for a very long time. A lot of big name players just said, well, I got relegated from Grandmasters, so I'm done. And that sucks.
And remember last season, I think we had 4 or 5 people that didn't get relegated and just retired anyway. They were like, I'm good.
Yeah,
so,
I'm done. I'm burnt. Yeah. There did seem to be a lot of burnout from the Grandmasters program. So, yeah, so that's what's happening with Grandmasters. Grandmasters being phased out by the end of next year. What that means is that we're going to get basically Masters tours, and there's a whole bunch of ways to qualify. But Masters tours and the seasonal championships are going to be driven by those Master tours, and that's going to, I would imagine, be like our way forward. I'm not sure what 2023 is going to look like. All we know is that Grandmasters will not be a part of this program, but it seems like they're going back to that whole like HCT style thing. So like I said earlier, 8 players from the seasonal championships are going to be going to the World Championship in order to qualify for the Masters Tour. So Grandmasters will get invites from season 1, but you can now feed into the Masters Tour from ladder, which is something that we haven't had in a while, and a lot of people have been asking for, because that's the way that a lot of people interface with Hearthstone, is sitting at home and playing on the ladder. So top 50 ladder finishes from each region are going to be invited to the Masters Tour. So Hat, when are we going to see you playing in a Masters Tour?
I mean, if it's top 50, I'm currently 75 on America, so like that's not that far. But ladder's about to get way harder.
Well, that is true. Yeah, people are about to start to really care about ladder.
Yeah. So for most of the past couple of years, it's been top 16. For the first 8 months of the year, 8 or 9 months, top 16 would get you an invite to a Master Tour. Top 16 is extremely difficult. Mm-hmm. Really, really close. Rope queuing is a big deal. Falling one spot will mean, and the invites waterfall down. But there were a lot of times where the top 16 would be half Grandmasters. They'd have pre-existing invites. And so if you were like 30th or whatever, you'd get it. Now I think it's still waterfalls, but it's top 50 without GMs in the mix. I bet it won't be a huge difference in who makes it, but I don't know. Speaking as someone that has been close to this number recently, this feels way more achievable, because I've been top 50. I've never been top 10. Mm-hmm. So I like there's more of a chance. I don't know if I'm going to, have the time and play in Master Tours or whatever, but
Oh my God, Hat. I hope you get into Masters Tours. It would just make me, so I would be your biggest cheerleader, man. Oh, that would be so great. And I love that, like, you're sitting here and without any extra effort, without having to change the way that you play the game by, you know, making time to play in qualifiers and make lineups and everything else, like, you can just do what you always do because you have fun and you love the game, and you could potentially qualify for a Masters Tour, which then you could potentially win and go to the World Championship. Like, that was not a pathway that existed to you for the last, well, how many years? Like, how many years has it been since ladder finishes even counted?
Yeah, like, I could grind top 16. It's really, really hard.
Well, but even then, you would have to grind. You'd have to get into the Masters Tour. You'd have to win a Masters Tour. You'd have to get into Grandmasters. Then you'd have to win Grandmasters in order to get a regional invite to the World Championship. Yeah. Like, there were a lot of extra steps to get to Worlds.
Well, and if you weren't a Grandmaster, the year that you did well would never be the same year that you made it to Worlds. I guess, like, you could qualify to Worlds in the first half, qualify to GM the first half of the world of the year.
Of the year, yeah.
And
then if you won GM
win
in the second
playoffs,
well, like Gabby,
in
right?
the second. Yes.
If you could just be Gabby, like
I am more than twice his age and definitely half as good as Hearthstone. So there are a whole bunch of numbers that are going to need some adjustment there for that to happen. But yeah, people want to play and win and then play in a bigger tournament and keep doing that until they get the World Championship trophy. Cool. Doesn't need to be more complicated than that. Expanded ladder is great. I work weekends. I can't do qualifiers. I don't want to. Even if I could, I'm not going to spend my one weekend day off grinding qualifiers. Sounds miserable. I'm just going to play ladder. And so top 50 is better than top 16. And it just seems like it makes more sense for what the program is about, which is you could be anybody and then you could be somebody.
That's fair. So yeah, like you mentioned, they are still going to be doing qualifiers, and there is still the caveat of if you don't win a qualifier, but you have a high win rate, there's 50 invites available for that. So if you play in a whole bunch of qualifiers and you have a high win rate, but you somehow have not won a qualifying tournament, then there's room there. Then there's also top 32 Masters Tour players are going to get invites. If they don't get an invite in any other way, then there's also invites for China Gold players, and there are third-party events have 20 invites for Season 1. So I don't know what that means, but there's some mystery invites in this system as well, totaling 400 players in Masters Tours, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and something that I've talked with my buddy and co-host over on CoinCeed, Edelweiss. She worked for a third-party event organizer, and the thing they had the most concern with is that every single weekend there were free online Hearthstone tournaments run by Blizzard. Where can third-party events fit in? Now, it's only 3 weekends of qualifiers per Masters Tour. There's always 1 weekend a month where you have space to do whatever, and they're just more spread out in general. If you want to run a different large third-party Hearthstone event, you are no longer competing with Blizzard itself.
Yeah, very true. And I think that, so because there are 400, so there's 400 players in these tournaments, and you know what, let's talk about the prize money now. So it's down below Battlegrounds. Spoilers. Oh no, wait, no, it isn't. Where did my money go? That's what all the Hearthstone players want to know.
That question an awful lot.
Okay, here we go. So 2022 prizing, like I said, the total for the entire esports world is $3 million. Half of that budget, 1.5 million, is going into these 6 Masters tours. However, with those tours being made up of 400 people, that's, again, split over 6 Masters tours. Each Masters tour prize pool is split over 400 players. That very quickly gets whittled down into quite, like I think he said Monsanto put it, where, you know, like lots of people are going to make some money, but nobody's going to make a living at Hearthstone.
No, this was kind of always the case. Listeners, I know most of you have a job and listen to us on the way to and from your job. If you're on the way there good luck today. I think you're going to do great. I really like what you did with your hair, and I think that the office is going to love it. And I hope everything works out today. If you're on the way home, I'm sorry that work sucked today, and hope you get some rest and you're able to have a nice dinner. But for the people that are listening that are like, hey, how do I be a professional Hearthstone person? Be a content creator. Doing well facilitates being a content creator. But if you want to make reliable income as a person who plays games, put yourself playing it on the internet and then hope people watch and give you money to do so, because that is how you do it. There are very, very few games that are extremely competitive where you can get there without being a content creator, and even then, you should probably just stream anyways.
Fair. So yeah, like I said, that 1.5 million is split between the 6 Masters tours. There are then the seasonal championships. So I'm imagining it'll be spring and fall. Those only have a prize pool, and this surprised me, of $50,000. Now the seasonal championships are 16 players, and they are the winners of the 3 Masters tours that feed into them, and then the top 13 players from those 3 Masters tours as well. And that is the most match wins combined over those 3 events. So 16 players total, splitting $50,000. I'm surprised these events are so small. Or I guess the prize pools are so small. And maybe they'll get bigger next year, because Grandmasters right now is accounting for $400,000 worth of the prize money within the esports program. Yeah. So season 1 is $250,000. Season 2, which is the last call season, is $150,000. So maybe once those are no longer like necessary, we'll have more money for the seasonal championships. But I can't believe it's a $50,000 prize pool. That doesn't seem like much to play for.
How? That's 16 players, right?
16 players, yeah.
Doing math. $3,000 per player. Yeah, that's not a lot. Yeah. They need to rip the Band-Aid off and get GM out of the picture so they have money to do things.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, I would like to see them make some sort of announcement, because we've had crowdfunding for Hearthstone Esports in the past, and it's done very well. Stupid caps, they shouldn't cap it. But anyways, we have gone on long enough already. We don't need to go down that rabbit hole as well. But maybe the base prize for these competitions is going to be $50,000, and maybe we'll see another crowdfunding. I hope so, because again, with that many people in the Masters tours, I want people to feel like they're being rewarded for, pursuing Hearthstone and for being a pro. So I want to see those seasonal championships to just have bigger prize pools, because that seems a little bit nuts. But maybe there will be, maybe there's plans, maybe it'll be bigger once GM's not a thing. We'll have to wait and see. The World Championship in 2022 is going to have the same prize pool as 2021, which was $500,000. And the Battlegrounds Lobby Legends, which was announced as part of this overall esports announcement, is getting the same prize pool. $500,000 is going into Battlegrounds Esports, which is very exciting. We didn't get too many many details on this necessarily, other than it's going to be streamed on Twitch. Yay! That is very, very exciting for a lot of people. But it's going to be multiple one-off events taking place. It's going to be global. So they're taking the top ladder players from all 4 regions. So NA, EU, APAC, and China. And then they're going to be 2-day tournaments. So on day 1, you have a group phase. And then on day 2, you have the playoffs. And the top players in each group go through to the second day of playoffs. So that's all we know for right now. But I'm really excited, because I really enjoy watching Battlegrounds. And I really enjoyed as well a lot of the casting of the Battlegrounds events that they've done. I think it's really fun to listen to. And I like how they're hopping around between all the different players for what should be important turns, and seeing the decisions that they're making at different points in the game. So I'm excited about Lobby Legends.
Yeah, we actually have official confirmation from a Slissa tweet, the most important source of information. The invites for initial BG Lobby Legends will be exclusively from ladder, no qualifiers so far, and is not referring to any invites like a streamer invitational like the past BG Brawls. Your rank finally matters. So, this is, when they say invites, it's like qualifier invites, not like, streamer invites.
Right.
It's not going to be people that have a bunch of people watch them play BGs. It's going to be, look at the leaderboard, take top X people, go. It's also very clear that this is an experiment. Hey, what do we do? I don't know. Let's invite some people that are on the list and then
let them
figure it
play. Yeah.
Yeah. So they double the number of formats that they support. I think that's cool. And Abar and Eric, who's also works in the esports as global comms, they've both been pretty active on Twitter talking about how they have plans for more stuff they want to support. Wild's been brought up a lot by Wild players who have had a lot to say this past week.
Oh yeah, they did. We're not getting into that drama, but it's my favorite Hearthstone drama in a long time.
The show is an hour 55 minutes, and we could easily go another hour just reading the replies out loud on content. Would be one of our best episodes ever, but we're not going to do that. We're going to save that content well for a slow week. So they are Abar finished rank 1 legend in Wild and qualified for the Wild Open in 2017 himself. He likes Wild. They have some ideas about the format, don't have anything planned for it yet. They've also mentioned arena and duels, and that Mercenaries is really new, but they have ideas. It seems like they're open to whatever, and that this is not a fixed thing, because all that money that's going to Grandmasters, they're getting it back. So I am looking forward to seeing what a world where the people in charge of Hearthstone Esports really care about Hearthstone Esports, what that world looks like, because Abar was a participant in it before he ran it. It's no one's going to care more than that.
Yeah, it's really great to get that perspective, right? Coming from a player who's interacted with the system and not just trying to make a system that you've never had to play through. So I think that, he was great when he was here before. We're really glad that he's back. And I think what we've gathered from these announcements is that he's a very passionate person when it comes to Hearthstone esports, whatever form that takes. And I'm really excited to have him in charge of the program and going forward, making some really big changes. So there's lots more information. There are interviews floating around. There's clarifications on Twitter. There's snippets of the rule book. Go and check out Abar's Twitter for that. We literally couldn't cover everything here because we tried to cover as much as we could, and we're at 2 hours. We gotta stop. So, yeah, if you guys want more information, just go check out Reddit and Twitter. There's all kinds of clarifications on there about what the new esports system is going to look like. And before we go, I just wanted to remind everybody, or tell everybody, that we've got and I thought I had all these pages up at the top and I didn't, so this wasn't there he is, adorable Wintervale returns with adorable.
Look at the kitty.
Yeah, look at the kitty. Everybody look at the kitty. So cute. Wintervale is starting December 21st. That is tomorrow if you are listening to us live. It is today if you're listening to the recording. There is a legendary quest chain that will give you 6 packs total. There is they're going to have seasonal tavern brawls again. So we've played them before. It's gift exchange, which is the one with the presents on either side of the board that you have to break and they do stuff.
Oh yeah, the Warlock brawl.
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other one is the Wacky Waxy Wintervale Tavern Brawl. I don't know what that one is, but I like the gift exchange one, so it's fine. There's also, I think, the coolest portrait we've had in a while. It's Thrall being as happy as I've ever seen Thrall making a snowman.
Wow. Thrall really wants to build a snowman. What about you, Just? Do you want to build a snowman?
I do, but unfortunately that spell isn't in Shaman. It's a missed opportunity. But yeah, so you can go into the Hearthstone shop and you can claim Thrall as of tomorrow. And while you're in the shop, they've also got festive skins. So there's a whole bunch of stuff for you to actually go and buy for both traditional Hearthstone and Battlegrounds. So again, the Winter Veil event is starting tomorrow, December 21st. Go and check it out and make sure you're finishing your quest line to get your 6 packs. They've also given an update on the Battle for Alterac Valley, and Horde, come on, we're losing. I mean, it's accurate, but damn it. I'm so sad.
I read that this morning, that the Horde was actually losing, and it just made me want to burn down a tree.
That is what we do when we're mad. It's very true. So yeah, go and check out the Winter Veil event. That's going to do it for us this week. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us on a super long episode of The Angry Chicken. Reminder that we are supported by our amazing patrons. You can become a TAC patron by going to patreon.com/TAC. Becoming a patron gives you access to our TAC Discord and some other cool perks. A very big thank you to our Patreon producers, Declan H, Jeffrey D, and Dustin C. Hat, where can folks find you on the internets?
The best place to find me, the hub of my content, is twitter.com/RidiculousHat. I host 2 other Hearthstone podcasts for some reason. Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast where we make the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. If you want more esports talk than this for also some reason, we will have that over at coinconcede.com. Vicious Syndicate does a data-driven look at the standard metagame over at vicioussyndicate.com. If you're looking to find Garrett, you can find him over at GarrettArt on Twitter. He tweeted a gif of puppies today, and it was cute. It was in response to Celestalon tweeting a gif of family and Vin Diesel. NoMoonArt.com is where you can get Garrett's dream designs. He takes commissions. He does good work. You should really think about it. Over in amove.tv is where he's hosting not Into the Nexus, but Grinding Gear is the new one. Grinding Gear? No, Nexus Gaming News now Grinding Gear.
Yes.
It's a big
Into the Nexus
talk
is
about,
still a thing. Yeah.
It is. Yes. Into the Nexus still a thing, but Nexus Gaming News has turned to Grinding Gear. If you like Final Fantasy XIV stuff, while you're sitting in the login queue, go ahead and fire up the episode. What else are you going to do? And he does all sorts of other podcasts over at amove.tv. Joss, what about you?
You can find me on Twitter and Twitch. I'm at Joce Plays. That's Joce Plays. And I wanted to say one final thank you to everyone who joined us for the extra live stream on Friday night. We were able to not only hit my goal, but also my extended goal of $3,000 for the Children's Miracle Network. But also we were able to get one of our team members who has had a really rough year and unfortunately has not been able to stream very much. We were able to get him to his goal as well. So it was an awesome cap to the year. And by hitting the $3,000 goal, I am going to be doing a Hearthstone New Year's Eve stream. So if you want to come and hang out, if you don't have any other plans on New Year's, then come spend it with me. I'm going to stream from about 9 p.m. Eastern until I think about 3 a.m. I'm going to do my absolute best to make it to Pacific midnight. It might kill me, but I'm going to try. So yeah, come and hang out. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to play a lot of decks. Hat's going to help me before that so that I don't make a fool of myself. But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So come and hang out. New Year's Eve starting at 9 p.m. Eastern time. I think that's pretty much going to do it for us this week. Thank you guys so much for listening. Until next time, job's done.
Job's done.